You're right. I think you can all go home. That's the end point of this, so I just skipped over. I'll start out with kind of a funny joke there. I am from the software quality assurance and testing world. I've got about 25 years of experience in the industry, and so forgive me my geeky humor up there, but that's pretty much what testers do. They try every possible combination of things in every possible situation. That's a good example of when the tester walks into a bar, the type of things that they would do while ordering a beer. My favorite one is actually the sequel statement where they're dropping a table bill right there to get out of having to pay. But anyway, I am here to talk about the state of software quality assurance and testing. You'll notice I put testing in parentheses because software quality assurance is not testing. The two things are intertwined, but they are certainly not the same thing. And the current state of defects in software quality assurance in industry is directly related to some inconsistencies and misunderstanding of those two concepts. So I'm going to start out by going over an article that I'm going to reference heavily here, and I put the link to it down here in case you want to check it out yourself. I'm only going to touch on some of the things that were in the article, some of the higher or the funnier parts, but there's a lot of information in there. It was put out by Fast Company. It was put up by a guy with a pretty unfortunate name, Harry McCracken. He was actually talking about the state of defects throughout 2017. But before we get to that, I wanted to talk about one that is a little bit closer to home. It actually happened in 2018. If you guys are familiar with Twin Spires, they're local in Kentucky. They're the company that's owned by Churchill Downs, and they actually do online betting for horse racing. This year, during the Kentucky Derby, 16 minutes before post time, their website went down. Okay. What made it even worse is that they allowed users to put their money in their accounts, but they didn't allow the users to place the bet. So they took your money, but didn't allow you to actually use your money. There's going to be a theme that you'll see as we go through this, and the theme is it's very common in industry to hear somebody say, what's the one place you don't want to find out about your software defect? And the answer to that is Twitter. Okay? You don't want to find out that you have a defect in your software when it hits Twitter, and this is why. You start to get tweets like this, and they get progressively worse as people get more and more angry. Some of my favorites here, maybe your team can fix your interface from 1998 while they're at it. It had nothing to do with that current defect, but people start to get salty as these defects start to take on a life of their own. Then they start to refer you to other sites. No problem with ExpressBet. So people start to go to other betting sites instead of Twin Spires. And maybe next year when the Kentucky Derby rolls around, that starts to hit them. It starts to do this brand erosion effect, where it's kind of like this software butterfly effect, where one small thing starts to affect a bunch of other things, and next thing you know, you've got this brand erosion. This is ridiculous. You guys are amateurs. You know the Kentucky Derby is running in 30 minutes. Unplug it, plug it back in. That's the common IT refrain. But this one is actually kind of my favorite. I'll save it to last. Let me know where to send my resume once you fire your CTO. That's where these things ultimately end up as they take on a life of their own. It starts to get really, really ugly, again, as these things start to go viral. So here's another one I wanted to bring up. The bug that made Gmail disrespect personal boundaries. I know Google was here. I didn't sign up for this last time because I knew Google was coming in and I wanted to talk about them after they left. So a defect in Google's Play Services software for Android caused Gmail to actually demand access to your body sensors. So the Fitbit and stuff like this before would allow you to send an email. So you had a Gmail account. You could send emails, but then suddenly, out of the blue, your email shut down until you gave Google services access to your personal health information, okay? It's obviously a defect. Google wasn't saying, you need to show me how many steps you took during the day before I allow you access to your email. It was a software glitch, but it was a bad glitch. The glitch had been around since 2015, and it actually reared its head in a bunch of other areas, but it was most notable when it actually affected email. And it started out with that tweet there. I blocked out the bad word that she said there, but what the blank is this about? And then from that point on, it went viral. She did a hashtag privacy, and that tweet actually spawned these tweets. Why do I need to turn on body sensors to use Gmail? What is Google after? Pretty sick of them. You need to change your email client. Tell me this is fake news. Gmail is the worst. This one's pretty good. They want to measure our stress level so they can monitor how well they're screwing us over. So again, you can see how these things start to take on a life of their own and get ugly, and it can erode a brand. Now, we all think of Google as this behemoth, right? And it's too big to fail, but no company is too big to fail. When I got in industry, the big search engine was Yahoo, right? And who uses Yahoo nowadays. So as big as Google is, as big as Amazon is, as big as Apple is, as these things start to pile up over time, the companies become less and less relevant. Look at the hit that Facebook just took, actually, because of the data privacy concerns. Facebook doesn't have the same amount of shine that it once did. Yes, we'd like all of our students to go get jobs at Facebook and make a lot of money, but in terms of the public perception of them as consumers who use that kind of an application or people who pay for ad space, like I said, it doesn't have that same shine. There's another one. The bug that Equifax probably wishes it had patched. In September of 2017, credit monitoring kingpin Equifax's website is breached by someone who makes off with sensitive financial information for 143 million Americans. What's interesting is this was only possible because Equifax failed to install a fix for its Apache web servers, okay? And it's a fix that was out for a full 2 months, and Equifax did nothing about it. In the end, it was discovered that they did nothing about it because patching that security hole was very labor intensive, in part because it involved installing and updating a version of Struts and then using it to rebuild all of the applications that were built on the older buggy version of Struts. If you're not familiar with Struts, unlike, example, a Windows operating system, Struts is not a system library that's provided by the operating system or a Linux distribution. Struts is a library that's typically bundled with applications. So every application has its own Struts jar file. So in order to fix it, you have to fix every application that was built on Struts. And this could be hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of applications in the tens of thousands of applications that Equifax had. What makes it even worse is that Equifax admitted their culpability. They said, yeah, we screwed up. We knew about this for 2 months. What we're going to do to make it right is we're going to set up a free credit monitoring site and a site that will tell you if somebody is accessing your financial information. The site that they set up and sent you to had its own security vulnerabilities where it stole user information from the site that they routed you to fix the problem in the first place. That kind of stuff ended up, you can see up there, it severely affected the Equifax stock price, and it was reported on by Baird, and they put it out there. It's another good example. The bug that confirmed everyone's fears about smart speakers. Members of the media got an early unit of Google's Home Mini smart speaker, and they discovered that their Mini was recording audio 24/7, okay? Just not on command, all the time recording audio. And what was worse, it was taking those MP4 files and uploading them to Google servers. So everything that you said and did in your house in the first version of this Google speaker was recorded and sent to Google, and they stored it on their servers, okay? It turns out that a software glitch with the speaker's touch panel, you actually touch it to get it to work, was to blame. Google reacted by simply disabling the option to talk to the Mini by pressing the touch panel. Hopefully this works there. And this is what ended up happening. CNN actually picked it up.
The problem is it isn't even out yet. It was released to reporters for free last week to test it out. One journalist discovered his device recorded everything in earshot and uploaded it. Google now says it has fixed the software bug. This raises pretty good questions. I'm joined by Samuel Bergen. Samuel, I've got to think this is terrible publicity for Google.
Absolutely. It feels like an episode straight out of Black Mirror, that dystopian series on Netflix.
So you can see again how these things just take on a life of their own. CNN picks it up, Fox News picks it up, MSN picks it up, and these things go viral. So, you know, Google wanted to compete with Amazon in terms of this smart home market, this smart speaker market, but Alexa obviously surged ahead when Google was trying to catch up, and this kind of a defect certainly didn't help them. Back here on the screen. This next one, pretty interesting. This is the bug that made Twitter look homophobic. Twitter users noted that searching for terms such as hashtag gay or hashtag bisexual didn't bring back any results. The company apologized by explaining that a bug relating to the algorithm it used to flag adult content had mistakenly hidden all tweets relating to some terms that Twitter regarded as pornographic in nature, okay? They basically misidentified LGBTQ terms like gay and bisexual as adult content and didn't bring back the results. To add insult to injury, what they did then is if you tried to do another search or tried to do another post with those same hashtags, they not only didn't bring back any results, they deleted your account for violating their policy standards. So you got a kick in the butt, and then you got a kick in the teeth on top of it. So what was actually kind of funny is Twitter had to end up putting out all these tweets. So there was accusations that started flying about. The the Twitter managers and the Twitter directors and the CEO being homophobes. There was all this background investigation that was happening to see what their personal lifestyles were like. And in essence, it really was just a software bug in the algorithm. It didn't have all those kind of shady connotations to it. But Twitter had to end up putting about 15 tweets out to explain this concept. And what's even funnier is what I talked about earlier, how you don't want to find out about defects on Twitter. Twitter found out about their own defect on Twitter. So many of our students have Macs. I think it's probably predominant on campus here. You probably experienced this. The bug that eliminated the need for those pesky passwords, a bug in Apple's High Sierra OS, provided access to Macs simply by entering the username root and no password. It gave anybody who got a hold of your Mac admin level access, and you can see it up there. Type in root, type your password, boom. You're in, you can get total access. Now you had to get their machine in the first place or remote connect to their machine, but if you were able to do that, you can get in. Now, one thing about Apple, they're pretty proactive. So within a day of the problem gaining widespread notoriety, Apple rushed out an auto-installing patch and they apologized. So that's pretty good, right? That should be the end of that one. However, what happened is the bug that undid the fix for the pesky password bug that eliminated the need for those pesky passwords. Dangerous Apple Mac bug comes back if computers are updated, experts warn. So it was kind of a groundhog day for Apple. The defect was reintroduced by an Apple update. If you were to update your High Sierra to 10.13.1, the issue returned and anyone could once again get into your computer. The patch could be reinstalled and the computer rebooted. Now, what was interesting about this one is most modern Macs do auto updates, but they don't do auto reboots. And in order for this to take place where the defect wasn't there, it needed to reboot automatically. So it wasn't enough to download the update. If you didn't have your Mac set to auto reboot, you got this defect back and you didn't even know about it. So it was broken a month ago, you fixed it, you thought you were secure, you downloaded the new High Sierra update, it's back and you don't even know about it, and somebody could be in your Mac doing bad things. A couple more interesting ones. The bug that could let a stranger ransack your home. Okay, in October of 2017, Amazon put out something that was called a smart key. It was basically a smart lock. I've got a picture of it over there. And it let its delivery people or employees of Amazon partners, house cleaning people, dog walking people, anyone affiliated with Amazon that they did a background check on, theoretically, walk into your home. They would enter a key code that you would set up, and then there was a camera that Amazon gave you on the inside that would record them coming in. So there's a double level of security, you would think. But what researchers found is that there was a Wi-Fi vulnerability built into that camera where they could actually freeze the camera to make it look like nobody's coming in your home. So you could unlock the door, come in, the camera showed a static view of the door closed, and you've got a stranger in your home. I actually have a video here that shows it to you. Kind of cool. On the left here, you'll see the code executing when they execute the code. In the middle is what's actually happening, and on the right is what the camera's recording. It takes a second, but you'll hear the lock, unlock, and you'll see the guy come in. The first pass is how it's supposed to work. The second pass is the exploit. There's the lock. Here comes the guy. Then he leaves. Looks like it's all good. Now here's the exploit running. And what does the camera show? Nothing. So now this guy's in your home, and he's going through your underwear drawer, he's hiding in your closet, he's stealing your TV, he's doing whatever it is that he's doing in there. That's a pretty serious problem. So,
access to your Mac.
Absolutely, getting access to your Mac, right, making tweets. So what Amazon did in typical Amazon fashion is they said, okay, what we can do is we can identify the person who's coming into your home at least, so that we can catch the person. So if somebody does break into your home, rest assured that we can catch them. And then they put out something that I thought was funny, called their happiness guarantee, okay? And basically what it means is they're gonna work with you to correct the problem, which meant that they recalled all the locks and the cameras. They're gonna refund your money for that purchase, and they'll help you file a claim with your insurance provider for everything that was stolen out of your home as a result of this defect that was in their code, okay? So this doesn't make me feel very good, especially if I was assaulted by somebody hiding in my closet, right? Here's another kind of funny one. I call this one the bug that scares the Jesus out of you. We talked a little bit about the Google Home Mini and the problems where it was recording 24/7. When Amazon released its Alexa, it had a new unexpected feature, and that was creeping out its owners with unexpected and unwarranted bursts of robotic laughs and laughter. Amazon said they were aware of the problem and they were working to fix it. What actually was happening is if any sound happened, if you were snoring, if you dropped a box, if you stubbed your toe and cursed, if that noise that came out of your mouth sounded like a waveform that said, "Hey Alexa, can you laugh?" it was triggering the laughter on Alexa. So it was misrepresenting the waveform, and it was causing all types of people to get freaked out. Again, here's some of the Twitter stuff. Lying in bed about to fall asleep when Alexa on my Amazon Echo Dot lets out a very loud laugh. There's a good chance I'm going to get murdered tonight. I like this one. Let me tell you this. If anything in my house, Alexa, stereo, or my dishwasher starts laughing at me for some reason, it's going out the window, right? This one is probably pretty near and dear to most of us. Amazon Alexa is apparently creepily laughing at random times. It's basically the exact opposite of what the artificial intelligence industry needs in a news cycle right now. So they certainly didn't help their own cause. And I saved, again, one of the better ones for last year. And this goes back to the brand erosion theme. This person was really considering an Amazon Echo device, but then the laughing horror story changed their mind and forgot people can hack those things, and that's a lost sale right there, okay? And one of the last ones I want to show before we start talking about the real implications of these defects exist. This is Facebook. In 2017, the social networks AI research team entirely transitioned its translation services over to their AI algorithms and neural network. What happened is one of the first things that happened is a Palestinian man was wrongly arrested by Israeli officials after Facebook's AI mistranslated his post. He posted a picture of himself next to a bulldozer. In Arabic, he had the caption, "Good morning." Okay? Facebook translated that message to attack them in Hebrew and hurt them in English. So his post ended up coming up with those terms instead. He got arrested, he was let go, he wasn't executed or stoned or anything, they actually let him go. But it's interesting to note that Facebook's translations are entirely now powered by AI. There's no human interaction at all. And around 4.5 billion translations are made each day across the social network. When you think about the scale and the implications that a defect like that can happen, it just happened to this one guy, but think about that, 4.5 billion translations are made. The potential for mistranslating things, misposting things, taking your words out of context, changing them to something else is pretty great. So, moving to a different report here. Tricentis, I didn't come up with this research, but Tricentis is a company that I work with in the private sector. They basically produce software test automation tools that enable DevOps. It's a pretty good company. Every year they put out this report for the last 5 years called the Software Fail Watch. Reports like the Software Fail Watch provide a much needed reality check for those of us that live in the software quality assurance space, because the report emphasized how the number of news stories exposing these bugs released into production only continues to grow, and it illustrates how a testing-only approach just doesn't cut it anymore. Even at the faculty retreat, Dr. Seals had a faculty retreat this year. The faculty was all talking, and I remember one of the faculty, I won't name them, was talking about how we need to get better at teaching software testing to the students that we're pushing out the door. And, you know, I was happy to hear that because I'm here. But again, it's a pet peeve of mine because it's not about software testing. Software testing is quality control. Software assurance is proactive, right? Quality control is finding defects. Software quality assurance is preventing defects. There's a big distinction between those two things. It's all about moving testing left. It's called the shift left in industry, where you're moving testing up in the software development lifecycle. It's a pretty staggering number. This is the number of newsworthy software fails that happened in 2017. There were 606 software fails that generated 1,177 stories that affected 314 companies, okay? I talked about brand erosion. If you look at this report, and I'll make it available, you can see how they came by these numbers, but for this slide, just know that the greater number is worse, right? So the industry that had the most brand erosion is consumer technology, okay? It was far and away the industry that was affected most by these defects. And if you think about it, it could be somewhat surprising to see that, because given that like software fails around healthcare, finance, public services have the potential to affect your health and well-being, brand erosion doesn't affect that nearly as much as it does consumer technology, but a lot of that lies in how we act as consumers, right? If your smartphone is broken, you just go buy a new smartphone, right? If you don't like the operating system on Apple, you switch over to Android. You have some ability to make a change there. But in things like the government sector, they use contractors. Those contractors are locked into a project for 5 or 10 years, and you don't have much choice. You have to go use Medicare Medicare uses a system for ICD-9, for ICD-10 medical records, and you're locked into that. You don't have as much flexibility to change your choice when it's in those kind of industries as it is with consumer technology. So just taking consumer technology into account, here's what it cost the software industry in 2017. $1,715,430,778,504. Or $778,504.
How
Okay?
many cents?
I think it's 12, but they quantify that if you look at the thing. That's a staggering number. Okay, that's staggering. $1 trillion it cost the industry in 2017 alone. Right? In terms of time, it cost 268 years, 8 months, 2 weeks, 3 days, 8 hours, and 46 minutes. That's accumulated time lost. That includes the initial time to develop the features, the time to roll the features out, the time for somebody to find the problem, the time to roll it back, the time to fix it, and then the time to reintroduce that. All right? If you've ever read The Mythical Man Month, it's a pretty good book. If you haven't read it, you certainly should have by now. It talks about how throwing more people at a software project doesn't necessarily make the project go faster. I don't know what they did to try to get to those 268 years that are trying to address it. I imagine they probably just threw more people and a lot of money at it. It's another staggering number. This shows the total amount of people affected. Now, the way they derived that number is pretty interesting. They added all the numbers they had gathered in their research, which is cars recalled, mobile phones with malware, paychecks undelivered, accounts hacked, etc. And they assumed that each one of those things directly affected one person. All right? This means in reality that the end sum is on the conservative side because, again, there's that butterfly effect where one defect can affect scores of people. So the count is probably actually much higher. I was a bit skeptical of it at first until I thought about how mobile reflects in these numbers alone, okay? There are almost as many cell phone subscriptions in the world. There's 6.8 billion cell phone subscriptions in the world, and there's 7 billion people, right? In 2013 alone, there were some 96 cell phone service subscriptions for every 100 people in the world. So think about when a cell phone mobile defect comes out, the staggering number of people that affects alone, and you can easily get to these numbers. This next slide is kind of interesting because it starts to break down software failures by type. Of those 616 failures, I think it was, 113 of them were embedded. So embedded software is stuff like Lexmark does. Right? It's software that runs on a printer. It's embedded in a slot machine, whatever. 193 were mobile cloud-based, and 300 were enterprise applications. Those are things like ERP, enterprise resource planning systems, financial systems that are installed in big companies and enterprise. Those numbers further break down to type of software fail by industry, and it shows which ones were security vulnerabilities, which ones were usability glitches, and which ones were software bugs. Retail and consumer tech by far had the most defects, had 109 that were software bugs and 97 that were security vulnerabilities. But there's something on the next slide, I'm going to start moving pretty quick here because my time's coming up, that I wanted to get to. The transportation industry alone. So the transportation industry alone, it only had 14 or so reported defects, but or it only had 60 so reported defects, and only 14 of them were in the airline industry. But if you guys watched the news yesterday, Delta just went down again with the software defect, right? Software defects that hit the airlines tend to engender rage in people, right? Those are the ones that you don't want to have. You're stuck at an airport, the kiosks go down, the flight screens go down. British Airways took one of the biggest hits in 2017. They had 6 outages in 2017, 3 of which took place in the span of 1 month. Now I'm going to blow up that one slide there because it actually illustrates something pretty cool. This is the anatomy of a software failure, and I'm going to break it down. Hopefully this works. What happened is a power surge caused a system failure. That caused a backup system to fail, which caused all communication and hardware messaging systems to go down at 2 airports, okay? As a result of that, the booking systems went down, and it forced 50,000 people to have to rebook on other airlines, which British Airways had to pay for. People arriving on planes, there were thousands, tens of thousands of people that were stuck on the tarmac. And at the check-in desks, there was no computerized check-in possible, okay? There's even more. Baggage handling, tens of thousands of passenger bags were left sitting in warehouses, mobile apps, no mobile check-in was possible, and British Airways actually had to reimburse people for premium phone charges as they tried to get through to some representative. And what this ended up doing is costing British Airways 1,000 flights were canceled over 3 days, 75,000 people were affected. British Airways had an estimated compensation bill that they had to pay out of $200 million, and their share price dropped by over $220 million as a result of this one power outage failure. So you can see how these things start to stack up. Then you may start to ask yourself, well, why don't they address this? I mean, there's smart people out there. We're not the only smart people in the world in this room. How come somebody doesn't think of a way to get ahead of this, right? And this is the reason I've come to. Calling your own baby ugly is hard, right? It's very, very difficult to have a child that you look at and say, man, my kid's ugly, right? It's the same way when you're in industry. You're working really, really hard to get this product out the door, right? You've got scores of people. There's a lot of money riding on this. People have contingent compensation and bonuses riding on this. Are you really going to be the person that raises your hand and say, hey, we're doing this wrong, right? It's very, very difficult to do. So what companies would do is they would call in a guy like me in the company that I used to work for. We would come in and we would do something. I created it for our company. Other companies have it. There's nothing really unique about it. It's called the QA assessment, where we would look at people, process, and tools in the company, all related to QA, and then we would give recommendations for all of the bad stuff that we found. The people that would bring us in were generally embattled CTOs that had a series of failed releases and they were on the way out the door and they were trying to keep a hold of their chair, right? They didn't want to get fired. Or it was the new CTO that was coming in who didn't know what it was that he was inheriting, right? He wasn't sure of the organization that he had and it was too much work to figure it out. So they would bring us in to take a look at what was going wrong and tell them how to make it better. We came up with some statistics. I was actually a part of this study. We were involved in about 4,500 projects over 2 years, and we discovered, and it's no secret, that there's too large of a disconnect between defect creation and defect discovery. If you've ever seen this, this is a standard V model, right? It's all the software development activities that take place here, and it's all kind of the testing activities that take place here. What's interesting, and these numbers bear out in our limited 4,500 project research, 80% of the defects are actually created here, okay? 70 to 80% of the defects are actually discovered here, though, and you can see what that does to the software development lifecycle. You're getting ready to ship, and that's when you're finding all the defects. Why wouldn't you try to find the defects earlier? Shift testing left, right? Do reviews on things like requirements documents. Do code reviews. Make sure that the developers are doing unit testing. The first piece of testing done on a piece of software should not be when development throws it over the wall to QA to get their hands on it, right? It should have been unit testing. The requirement should have been tested. There's 8 or so characteristics of good requirements. Did they look at the requirements that they were clear, that they were unambiguous, that they didn't contradict themselves? Software quality assurance is about all of those things, and we would bring that up to the clients that brought us in. It's more than just testing. It's more than just the code, all right? In fact, it's not about the code. People are going to make defects. You're going to write some poor code. It's just going to happen. Root cause analysis by looking at the code is relatively easy. You can tell what happened there. Somebody put a semicolon in, somebody didn't close a loop, somebody wrote a bad function, whatever it is. You can usually get down to the bottom of it by looking at the code. What's more important is, how did that happen in the first place? How did this code get in? Did they not do a code review? Is there no peer review process? Are they not doing paired programming? It's the processes and procedures that should be in place to catch these kind of things as a safety net. Skip over that slide because we're getting close on time there. CTOs like to chase the new shiny thing. That's how they get their jobs and that's how they hold on to their jobs. So even if they go into a company where they're doing a software development lifecycle that's working, and Waterfall is often put upon, it's old school, it's very regimented, you can't go back. There's phase gates, it's very difficult to get things out the door, it takes a long time. But Waterfall in and of itself is not a bad software development lifecycle. It's certainly better than having no software development lifecycle. So Waterfall might work, but in comes the new CTO, and he wants to change things up. He wants to put his stamp on things, okay? So what he does is says, we're gonna do Agile, we're gonna implement Scrum. But he's got no clear vision for how he's going to do that. So what you end up with is some people doing Waterfall, some people doing Agile. We started calling that Wagile. How do you combine these two processes together? You really can't. They're so dynamically different from each other that you can't really do it. Then maybe the new CTO comes in and he tries to combine Scrum with DevOps, but he has no idea about the amount of tools that go into the DevOps space. I haven't thought of a key name for that. AgOps or maybe Devil. Devil's probably a good one, DevIle or something. But when you start to combine those two, it starts to get hairy. This is an actual architecture diagram for a major health insurance company that I worked for about 15 years ago. This is all moot right now. I'm not giving away any trade secrets. It doesn't violate my NDA. This is the architecture diagram. Each one of the boxes here is a project that had resources working on it. It could be 10 resources, it could be 100 resources, it could be 1,000 resources, all working on this particular application or project, all doing things in a different way. Some were doing things Agile, some were doing things DevOps, some were doing Spiral, some were following Kanban. How in the heck can you get these systems to work together when they're not even on the same release schedule? They're coding things differently. How do you do end-to-end testing on a system like this when you can't stub it out, certain things aren't available at the time that they need to be. It's just a mess. I've got 2 minutes left, so I'm going to have to speed it up pretty much. Sorry. So when we would come in, we would do an assessment based on something that's called the CMMI. You can all look this up. CMMI is a Test Maturity Model Index. I didn't create this, but we leveraged it heavily. CMMI basically rates the quality, assurance, maturity of an organization on this levels here. Level 1 is initial. It's a chaotic process that's dependent on heroes to get something out the door. It's reactive instead of proactive. Level 5 is optimized. It's where all of the right things happen. Most corporations or industry companies can manage effectively at a level 2 or 3. It's only when you get to companies like NASA or mission critical software that you really need to get to that level 5 space, okay? And I'm out of time. I don't want to cut my next person up. I'm going to make this deck available. There's about 5 or 6 more slides that talk about this TMMI process where you can apply it. It doesn't have to be applied to big enterprise companies, guys. You can apply it to your own kind of software projects that you're doing right now for college, right? If you go out in the world and you're working for a very small company, this TMMI process and good sound software quality assurance concepts can certainly help with what you're doing right now, okay? But I'll make this available. I'm in 102F. If you want to come talk to me about this, feel free to.
Thank you.
Yep.